Actress Blake Lively is suing It Ends With Us director Justin Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment, retaliation, and creating a hostile work environment during the film's production. A legal battle that has absolutely captivated Hollywood. Baldoni denied the claims and filed a multi-billion-dollar countersuit that was later dismissed. But the feud only grew. In recently unsealed court filings, text messages between Lively and longtime friend Taylor Swift emerged, revealing private discussions about Baldoni and the conflict, including sharp criticism of the director and expressions of emotional strain. The trial is scheduled for May of this year. Will Taylor Swift be a crucial witness? Tonight, we take a closer look. But first, it is an alleged murder plot that can only be described as cold, calculated, and absolutely twisted. IRS agent Brendan Banfield is charged with aggravated murder for the February 2023 killings of his wife, Christine, and a man named Joseph Ryan. Both were killed inside the Banfield's Herndon, Virginia home. Prosecutors allege that Brendan Banfield orchestrated the killings to conceal his affair with the family's Brazilian au pair, Juliana Magalhães. They say Banfield impersonated his wife on a fetish website, catfishing Joseph Ryan into believing that Christine wanted him to sneak into her house to play out a rape fantasy with a knife. According to the au pair testimony, Banfield shot Ryan and then stabbed Christine while staging the scene to look like a home invasion. Brendan Banfield is now facing life behind bars and has pleaded not guilty. And now we are in the middle of the defense case, and tonight you will see all the big moments. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And you know, I've been at Court TV for quite some time, a lot of years, more years than anyone else at Court TV. So, and I wear that with pride, but I've seen and covered a lot of cases, and unfortunately, a lot of cases involving allegations of spousal murder. And, you know, you see some cases that are, all right, this one's a little harsh, a little rough. This one, wow, that's kind of cold. I've never seen anything quite like what's happening in Virginia. This is the most devious plot or alleged plot I've ever come across under these circumstances. Because I want to walk through it slowly so you truly understand just how sick and twisted this alleged plot is. So, Brendan Banfield's married to Christine Banfield. They live in a cul-de-sac, leafy suburb down in Virginia. He works for the government. She's a nurse, and they've got a beautiful 4-year-old daughter. Everything's fine, but mom's working. They're busy. They need an au pair, and oh, that's the au pair right there with Brendan Banfield. So this is their plot, that they're gonna go online to a fetish website called FetLife, where people, you know, consenting adults go on. Now, I'm not judging people who go on this, right? Consenting adults, in my mind, can do whatever they want, right? As long as it's legal. And you know, this stuff is legal, but it's a fetish website, so it's a little bit out there. And I have seen none and I have heard no evidence that Christine Banfield was into anything even closely resembling FetLife, this nurse and mother. Pretends to be his wife, makes up a name, and then is fishing for a victim. And this plot, whoever he's fishing for on this FetLife website is some guy who's on there looking for a kinky fantasy, but he's fishing for someone that he's going to shoot and kill. Think about that. You're like going through candidates on who I'm going to kill. This is like serial killer stuff. And they land on Joseph Ryan. And Joseph Ryan then gets catfished into knife play. What do I mean? Brendan Banfield and the au pair, allegedly, according to the au pair, according to prosecutors, are pretending to be Christine under the name Anastasia, and are interacting with men, finally landing Joseph Ryan and saying, listen, we want, not we, but like, hey, I want you to come over to my house and I want this rape fantasy to take place. where you break into my house, you have a knife, you tie me up, you wrap me up, and you rape me. And in the text messages, you know, I might act like I don't want to do this, but I do want to do this. Now think about that for a second. He has now set it up for his wife to be raped, for the mother of his child to be raped inside their home. Because she's not consenting to this. He thinks she is, but she isn't. So he wants, if you believe this, he wants his wife to be raped, and then she's going to be murdered. So her last moments on earth. Now it gets even sicker, because he's going to break into the room and shoot Joseph Ryan. Think about if you're Christine. You're being raped by this man who broke into the home. My husband, the IRS agent, is here, and he saves me. Thank God he saved me. He shoots and kills the rapist. Oh. Then he grabs the knife and starts killing her. Now she knows that the man that she loved, the man who was the father of her child, is the one who is going to take her life. This is sick and twisted. What happened to Christine in this alleged murder plot? Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, who's joining us live from outside the courthouse in Fairfax County, Virginia. Kelly, great to see you. Now, one of the things, I say alleged every time, right? It's alleged up until it is proven, if it gets proven. This catfishing theory, which is a big part of the plot. Investigators who are working this case were not in agreement on all of this.
Hey there, Vinny. Yes, that is exactly right. And that is what defense counsel is banking on here, calling law enforcement officer after law enforcement officer to discuss the conflict that existed in the police department over this idea of catfishing, over this idea that Brendan Banfield, the defendant, and the au pair lured Joseph Ryan over to the house, posing as Christine, pretending to be Christine, and then he got there, and as you just mentioned, all of these things ended up taking place. But the conflict was, well, was it Christine that actually was on that FetLife account, or was it Brendan Banfield and the au pair? Clearly, as defense counsel has been pointing out by bringing witness after witness to the stand, there was some disagreement, especially initially, as to who actually was behind those devices that belonged to Christine Banfield. Let's go ahead and play a little bit from one of the law enforcement officers who took the stand today.
Did there come a time when supervisors were suggesting theories to the homicide investigators in this case?
So we had a briefing within the first week of the incident where we were discussing everything that everybody had done and the information that was collected. And our supervisor at the time told us there were two theories in the case and we needed to get behind the right one.
Who was the supervisor?
Lieutenant Smug.
Okay. Who was in the room?
The homicide investigators, the detectives.
Okay, were there any other people?
I don't recall if there were victim services or advocates or our crime analyst or others who might be there during a briefing when we have just had an incident.
Was one of those theories catfishing?
It wasn't stated what the theory was. It just said there were two theories and you need to get behind the right one.
So, Vinny, you heard her say there, you need to get behind the right one. Defense counsel has pointed that out, talking about the pressure that was within the police department, and then how some law enforcement officials were transferred out because they weren't getting on board with the right theory. So jurors have been listening to all of this, definitely piqued their interest today, and especially, as you were mentioning in the intro, they were really, their interest was piqued when they were hearing Juliana on the stand talking about this entire plot and this catfishing theory.
It's a problem. There's no way around it. That is an absolute problem. If you've got law enforcement saying, listen, you got to come aboard, you can't have a different opinion, and if you're not with us, you're against us, and you're out of here. That's a problem. All right. What did we learn about the au pair finally flipping or turning on Brendan Banfield, the man that she spent New Year's with, the man who she was in the hot tub, she's in the bathtub with him. What about that?
She finally did flip on him, Vinny, after she was behind bars for quite some time. And she got what many people call a sweetheart deal. After this trial is over, she will be deported back to Brazil. That's where she is from, for her cooperation in this case. We saw some text messages today from some of the law enforcement officers who were on the stand, in which they were expressing what appeared to be a little bit of a surprise over this, what I just referred to as a sweetheart deal. So you can see the text messages there. Some of the language has been bleeped out because there was some curse words in it. But people were expressing surprise over this plea deal, but she did end up flipping on him. One of the law enforcement officers on the stand today did say, when he was on direct examination, that he really didn't even think they needed Juliana Margulies in this case because the evidence, especially the blood evidence, did point to Brendan Banfield. But let's go ahead and listen to a bit of what he had to say.
You arrived at the determination that you were right because Juliana Perez Magalhaes told the story.
Yeah, I think she filled in the blanks, but by and large, what she said was consistent with what I believe the evidence showed pretty much within my first 30 days of being involved in the case.
Okay, so were you aware that it was 2 weeks before trial when this proffer occurred?
Yes.
Okay. And was it your position that you needed her to testify against Brendan in this case?
I thought it would be helpful, but I don't think it was necessary based on the evidence.
That's what he says, Vinny, not necessary based on the evidence, which came as kind of a surprise to me. But he did talk about things like the Banfield home. And we've been out to that Banfield home in that quiet suburban area. And we took some video of the home and the windows, because one of the things the law enforcement officer said on the stand is she talked about the windows being replaced, triple pane windows. And he said, well, the receipt exists that he did end up replacing the windows on the home. But it's hard to imagine that she, Juliana, wasn't needed in this case, because when you take a look at the things that defense counsel is pointing to, the fact that investigators were transferred out of the division, they have the blood evidence, and there's two different interpretations of the blood evidence, of course, from defense as well as the prosecution. Juliana, her credibility is at stake here. Jurors will determine how credible she is, but a lot of what she had to say, it seems to be matching up with what investigators found here.
Okay. I know everyone's getting ready for the weekend and all the snow that's going to hit everywhere, including Virginia, where you are. So where do we stand in the case? What does it look like? When does it look like things may wrap up here?
Vinny, we weren't supposed to meet tomorrow, but now we are. The judge had given us an idea of that just yesterday. So tomorrow we're going to have a full day, 9 a.m. They're going to review jury instructions. 10 a.m. the testimony will begin. And she said it's going to be a late day tomorrow, but definitely is going to go into next week. We may be done with the evidence portion of the trial tomorrow. So next week we might just be in closing arguments, but definitely going to go through next week. The defense counsel has at least 3 more witnesses to call, and then we are hearing the state is going to put on a rebuttal case.
All right. Kelly Craft in Virginia, Fairfax County. Thank you so much. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining me tonight, criminal defense attorney, legal analyst Carmen Rowe. Also with us, you know her as Lawyer Lori on TikTok. It's criminal defense attorney Lori Murray. And finally, attorney Ali Benevento with us as well. Great to have everyone aboard. Okay, let me throw this out there. I want to hear what everyone has to say about this. Police officers testifying. there was a difference of opinion on whether or not Christine was the one putting herself on the fetish website or somebody else was catfishing on the website. How much of a problem is this? Does this raise reasonable doubt for you? Does it raise a reasonable doubt for a juror? Carmen started off.
I don't know, Vinny. This case is tough. I think the defense does have the state on the ropes. The fact that they're coming back with a rebuttal case suggests that they think that's true as well. So is it enough? I feel like I need a really strong closing argument to tie all of this reasonable doubt that's been put out there in perspective, coupled with what I think is very little, if any, credibility from the au pair, given all that we've heard from her.
Wait,
So,
she
yeah,
looks
I mean,
credible right there with the emoji in the bathtub.
Yeah. Listen, I love this sweetheart deal characterization. I mean, come on. This is a time served. You can go home. Nothing to see here. And in your intro, it's like if you believe she was part of this horrible plot, we're letting her go. There's something wrong with all of it.
And also, what about the fact that their officers are testifying, the investigator is testifying that they were pretty much put in a room and told, you need to get on the right team, not you need to follow the evidence and go where the evidence leads and develop your theory from there, not follow the evidence to get to the truth, but rather you need to get behind the correct theory, which suggests to me that there is at least some evidence in front of this jury that something was wrong in that homicide investigations room at the police department. I, as a defense attorney, I would be salivating over that. We'll see what the jury has to say about it, but I found that very interesting.
What I find interesting is the fact that you have a police officer who's testifying for the defense, and that never happens. I mean, never happens. So the credibility of Juliana, the au pair, is coming into question, but you've got a police officer almost backing her up. And I think you said that the computer, the numbers of the IP address match up, but who was behind it? And I don't think we can ever know that for sure. So is that reasonable doubt? Probably. And they're going to have to weigh that with whether the facts line up with her actual story. So a police officer testifying on your behalf absolutely has a lot of sway, and that's definitely some reasonable doubt. And I agree with Carmen, we're going to need to see some strong closing arguments.
All right, let me ask you this. We'll take it out of the reasonable doubt world, and let's talk about the truth, okay? So if, in fact, the au pair is lying, what does that mean? That means that she's innocent, he's innocent, Christine was into kink, and Brendan Banfield didn't get there in time to save his wife. That Joseph Ryan murdered the wife. But why would Joseph Ryan murder the wife? I don't understand that. He was on the fetish website. He wasn't there to hurt anyone. He was there for a kinky time. So, that doesn't make sense. If Christine is the one doing it, then she would not be harmed by Joseph Ryan.
We're not talking
Vinny,
about the truth.
Let me say this about that.
Sorry, I'm just saying, we're not really talking about the truth, because when you get a defense attorney who's really good at their job, they're going to come in there and they're going to give the story that a jury may actually want to hear, something to hang their hat on. So, yeah, it might not make sense, but it is something to hang a reasonable doubt on. So the truth, it's interesting to those of us who are playing Monday morning quarterback, but when you're in there, you got to be really good as a juror to see the big picture and to question as to whether it makes sense.
I agree, Lori. And all I will say about that is this. In my personal opinion, while Vinny always likes to talk about us looking for the truth, sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. When law enforcement and or prosecutors put their thumb on the scale, in any case, I think we lose the truth somewhere in that. And so if these officers were dead set on this is where we're going to get to, any means necessary, I think they distort our ability to know what the truth ever was. And in this particular case, even though it may not make sense, it's like, I don't know where the truth is. It's not all, it's not none, and maybe it's somewhere in between. But I think when law enforcement gets involved and starts altering our path towards the truth, I think it gets offset, and I think we never get there, and that's a shame.
And it's not the defense's burden. It's not, frankly, it's not their job. Their job is to hold the prosecution to its burden to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And just like Carmen and Lori were just saying, it's law enforcement's job to get to the truth, to follow the evidence, not to make a determination before and make the evidence fit into their theory. So, my response to that is it's not the defense's job.
Right. But I'm just talking about the truth. Sue me. Sue me, folks.
Nobody
I'm just
cares.
wondering,
Well, if it's true, then it's not their
what really
job.
happened? I don't want anyone wrongfully convicted, but I don't understand how she gets stabbed to death by Joseph Ryan. To me, that doesn't add up. To me, it's impossible. Joseph, if you look at the communications, Joseph Ryan was concerned, and he said, if you start, resisting too much, I'm just going to stop. Joseph Ryan's not there to hurt anyone. He's there to do some play acting. So how on earth could she get stabbed to death under those circumstances? It wouldn't happen. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, you cannot acquit.
Don't do it.
Well, Vinny, here's another
I agree with you.
scenario.
It doesn't make a
What-
whole lot of sense.
See, everyone agrees with
What
me.
if-
I think that's what I just heard.
No,
Go ahead, Carmen.
what if the au pair is the person who stabbed her to death? That's what I'm saying. When you start
Oh, wait, time out.
altering
If the au pair stabbed her to death, why doesn't Brendan Banfield, an officer of the law, do something to stop it or tell someone?
I'm going to go back to what Ali said. It's not his job to do law enforcement's
Not his
work in
burden.
this case.
It is. He's law
look,
enforcement.
No,
He's
no.
the
He's an
IRS.
He's an IRS
Come on.
enforcement agent.
He's an IRS
not
agent.
on.
I think enforcement is kind of a stretch.
Well, he's not a mall. He's not a rent-a-cop. He's an actual federal law enforcement person. Okay, they are staying with us. We've got more to get to. What do the call records reveal in this case? We're going to go through them call by call the morning of the double murder. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinny Politan Investigates, prosecutors say they recovered the knife and gun used by Paul Canero, who's accused of annihilating his brother's entire family. But did the killer set out to murder all 4 family members? Tonight, we investigate. Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair. So he killed his wife and another man.
He was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
She said my name. She told me, Juliana, call 911.
And what did you do?
I called 911.
And what happened after you called 911?
At that point, Joe was already shot, so that's the sound in the background. And Brennan looks at me and just, in a way, for me, to hang up the call.
The calls that were made that morning tell a story. And I think it's an important part of putting together the timeline of what happened the morning that Christine and Joseph Ryan were murdered. So let's start here. Juliana, the au pair, and Brendan's calls from that morning, February 23rd, 7:36 a.m. Juliana calls Christine Banfield. And remember what the allegation from prosecutors is, that Brendan took Christine's phone away from her. She's sleeping, turned it off, put it in a drawer in the kitchen. So these calls are not going to be answered. 7:37 a.m. Juliana calls Brendan Banfield, her lover, her boss, but also her lover. They speak for 19 seconds. There is surveillance video of Brendan Banfield at McDonald's. Looks like he's getting out of the bathroom and then leaving McDonald's on the phone at 7:37 and then walking towards his car. Remember, he had gone to the drive-thru to pick up the food, but then seemingly came back, circled around, parked, and then went inside. Not sure why. Maybe you go inside to get your food if you need to go in there, but he didn't. But he came back to the lot, and there you see him pulling away, 7:37. Okay, let's take a look at some more of those calls. 7:38 a.m. Brendan calls Christine. You saw him just get into his car, so now he's driving back to his home, which is, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes away. He calls Christine at 7:38. Obviously, she doesn't pick up. He calls again at 7:38, and she's not picking up because the phone is off and it's in the drawer in the kitchen, according to prosecutors. Then, after those two calls, Brendan calls the au pair, Juliana. They speak for 47 seconds. He's driving. He continues to drive. He's getting closer to home. Then at 7:42, Brendan calls Christine. Again, no answer. Phone is off. 7:42, he calls Christine one more time. Now, at this point, it seems he gets home. The next call that we have is at 7:47 a.m. This is the call that Juliana, the au pair, described in that testimony, calling 911. After Christine told her to call 911, after Christine witnesses her husband shoot her rapist. So then she's like, Juliana, call 911. And Juliana calls 911. But that call only lasts 7 seconds. She never speaks, but you can hear the moaning of Joseph Ryan in the background, who had just been shot by Brendan. That's 7:47. 7:47 a.m., there's a return call to Juliana from 911, right? You call, you don't say anything, you hang up, 911's going to call you back. They called her back. 7:48, Juliana calls 911, but it's canceled. 7:49, Juliana calls 911, but again, it's canceled. This is strange behavior. But now here's a big, now there's a gap in time. It's 13 minutes later at 8:02 when Juliana calls 911 for an 8-minute phone call. Like that's like the actual 911 call that gets people to respond. But it's 13 minutes after these two canceled calls, 14 minutes after the original call. Let's take a listen to a piece of that.
Service channel 911, where's your emergency?
I need help. There is my friend. She just was attacked in the night now. She's bleeding a lot. I don't know what to do anymore.
My name is Brendan Banfield. I'm a federal agent. This is my house. There's somebody here. I shot him. But he stabbed her. She's bleeding. She's got several marks on her neck. What do I do?
Tells quite a story. Let's bring back in our think tank, Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, and Ali Benevento. Can't really point the finger at the au pair for the stabbing. I mean, right there in the 911 call, he's saying what he saw, allegedly. All right, Lori, what story do these call logs tell?
Well, I think they tell the story that the au pair wants us to hear, which is that, that she helped set this poor guy up and set this whole thing up. I mean, the McDonald's calls line up with exactly what she said was happening. Everything that is on these calls lines up with her version of the story. So I haven't, and maybe I've missed it, but I haven't seen them try to explain the calls yet. And maybe they can. But again, like Allie said, they don't really have to. That's a little bit of burden shifting, I guess, but I certainly would try if I was his attorney.
Allie, what story are you hearing from these calls that were made that morning? The 911 calls, the 747 call, Brendan Banfield jumping onto the line. I'm an IRS agent. He is law enforcement. I told you that.
He's law enforcement, but he's not the investigator on this case, and he's not the prosecutor. You know, I think the calls are what they are, that there was a lot of phone activity between the two of these individuals. Certainly, it doesn't look good when you're looking at it through the lens of the prosecution's theory of the case. But the question is going to be, can the prosecution actually follow through and prove that theory? They can say, this is what we believe is happening. You're showing the calls. Okay, yes, maybe I can see it. But they've got credibility problems with the au pair. Those are bizarre sounding phone calls, if you ask me. I understand everybody processes trauma differently, but I'll be very curious to see how they make this all fit together. Because right now, okay, yes, I'll give you that they may have scored some points with those call times lining up with what the au pair is saying. But yeah, I wouldn't, I'm not putting too much into it.
Here's what I'm trying to understand, Carmen. Big picture. I'm going to move back, give you the big picture here, right? Why is it such a big deal that there's a car parked in the driveway of the home? Like, the story of Brendan Banfield, right, is that the au pair noticed this car in the driveway, and then she called Christine. Christine didn't answer, so then she called Brendan. And then Brendan has to run back from McDonald's because there's a car in the driveway? Why is that? Why all of a sudden we go into like, oh my goodness, something's going on?
Vinny, we have more questions than answers, and if I'm the jury, that's a problem.
For who?
I mean, look, I think for the jury to come to the verdict that these prosecutors and these law enforcement officers want them to get to. In my mind, we should know more than just these details with not a lot of context. I mean, does it seem to, as Ali said, fit into the au pair story? Sure. But I also want to ask, I mean, who's getting kind of freaky at 7:30 in the morning? And why is her phone in the drawer? And why is he at McDonald's? And why is she calling in a frantic situation, hanging up on 911? If this was planned out, it didn't sound like it was planned out well. Are they freaking out in the room? Is she the person that's got the plan? Is she, the au pair, the person who's doing the stabbing and the shooting? Again, I think it's a problem that there's more questions than answers for me.
Right. But then if she's killing Brendan's wife, he could have shot her because he has a gun. He's law enforcement. Okay. All right.
He's law enforcement, but he also has the right not.
There's no explanation that makes him look innocent. There is not one explanation that makes him look innocent.
But they're not doing a good job explaining their theory of the case either. And again,
that's very simple.
His job.
I explained it at the top of the show, this devious plot. All right, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, Taylor Swift and Blake Lively, former best friends. I don't know if they are anymore. Are they? I'm not sure. But anyway, text messages between the two released in the Blake Lively, Justin, what is his name? You can tell how much I'm into Hollywood, right? Justin Baldoni lawsuit. That's next.
We all have an idea of what life can be.
I want to see you again.
It Ends With Us is a story of romance and domestic violence, but the legal battles between the film stars have taken center stage. Blake Lively, wife of A-lister Ryan Reynolds, is Lily Bloom, a florist. Lively's big break came in 2005's Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and Gossip Girl 2 years later.
Oh, that's my brother Ryle.
The first official customer?
Justin Baldoni, who owns the rights to It Ends With Us, produced and stars as Ryle Kincaid, Bloom's love interest. Lively filed a lawsuit in December 2024 accusing Baldoni of sexual harassment and attacking her reputation. Among her claims, Lively accuses Baldoni of repeatedly adding sex scenes focused on her and casting Baldoni's friend in a delivery room scene so he could see Lively unclothed. Then Baldoni filed his own claim, seeking $400 million from Lively and her husband, saying they falsified claims to take control of the movie and engaged in an orchestrated public attack on his reputation. His lawsuit also alleged that Lively ignored his request for her to meet with an intimacy coach before filming certain scenes. A judge dismissed Baldoni's claims in June 2025, but Lively's case is still active in New York federal court. She's seeking unspecified damages.
So this case is moving forward to a trial. They have a trial date coming up this year in the spring. But one of the things that is also taking place is some of the evidence or alleged evidence or purported evidence is being unsealed. And one of the things that came out were some text messages between Blake Lively and Taylor Swift. Take a listen to Sigrid McCauley, who is a spokesperson for Blake Lively here, speaking about Taylor Swift and this case.
Is she upset that people like Taylor Swift are being drawn into it and the effect it has on her relationship with her friends?
Well, certainly, Blake Lively has done everything she can to protect her friends from not being brought into this. It was the Baldoni parties who brought that evidence into this case. It's not relevant.
So let's take a look at what exactly was the substance of some of these unsealed text messages between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively. The first one from Taylor Swift. I think this knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin, and then attached that URL of Justin Baldoni revealing that he was sexually traumatized by an ex-girlfriend when he was hoping to save himself for his marriage. The something coming out was a New York Times article which included the allegations by Lively against Baldoni. So here they are talking about this sort of back and forth PR battle. Blake says it rings different when he doesn't end the story by saying, "Did I always listen when they said no?" Like he did with me, but that must have not have tested well in the focus group. Then Blake says he's being honored at the Vital Choices for Women event on Monday. Taylor Swift, this is so disgusting, and I hate that he's this clever about this. Continues, Blake, can you imagine feeling as confident as these predators that you're going to always get away with it? His accepting an award as an ally for women, and Scooter going about the world with his head held high as he co-owns and funds a crisis PR company that silences women. And Taylor says, it's like a horror film no one knows is taking place. Blake Lively, oh, but they will. It's the only thing that can come of this, the good that protects other women from this happening to them. Meanwhile, I walk around feeling death sentence, guilty and apologetic for being sarcastic and liking a theme party. All right, let's bring back in our think tank. Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, Ali Benevento. Ali, your thoughts here. Is Taylor Swift going to be part of this trial?
I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, those text messages came into play today at the hearing, but it's important for people to understand, at this phase of the game, this is not the trial. This is about, is there a genuine issue of material fact is the standard, right, at summary judgment. And so I think it's entirely possible those may come in. Certainly will make public attention on this trial higher if you have a witness or somebody with messages with as high a profile as Taylor Swift. But I think that remains to be seen. We'll see. Is this
a little bit of a nightmare for Taylor Swift to be in the middle of this mess, Carmen?
Sure, she doesn't want to be.
I think it is. I mean, I've never heard Taylor Swift talk so differently than we hear most of the time. I mean, she's America's sweetheart. We have Swifties all over the world looking at her. And so this language that she's using and the way she's talking about Baldoni is a little different than what we normally hear. So, no, I don't think it helps her. But I think that both parties keep making this a media attention situation. I don't know if it ever sees the inside of the courtroom, and I don't know if they even want it to. I don't think Baldoni does anyway. I think he wants to continue to slander these ladies in the court of public opinion. And I think putting Taylor Swift's text messages out here in the public was meant to do that, to embarrass her.
Lori Murray,
I agree with that.
Civil cases generally settle. Like, we don't cover a lot of them on court TV because generally they always settle. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, huge exception because Johnny Depp wanted that public trial. Do you think these parties want a public trial?
No, I don't. And I think that the problem, I don't think this is going to settle. I disagree with Carmen on that. I think it'll see the inside of a courtroom because they both dug their heels in so deep. They're not cooperating on anything. They have no agreement as to what happened, and they keep putting this stuff out there. And as regards to Taylor Swift, I don't know why Justin Baldoni would put those out there, because all it does is let Blake Lively get in her pure motive of wanting to help other women. So I don't think these text messages help him. I think she's right. I think Carmen's right, and that it was just done to embarrass the girls. And you don't want to mess with Taylor Swift. Those Swifties come after you. So I don't know what he's doing here, but I definitely don't see this settling. They have dug their heels in so deep, and neither one of them has backed up an inch.
So do you have to ask prospective jurors whether or not they're a Swiftie or not? And can you tell, Allie? Is there a way to tell?
Yeah, you put it in your voir dire. Absolutely. I'd want to know, how many albums do you own? Have you ever been to a concert? What do you think? Does that sway you, in one direction or the other? And, to Lori's point, I don't know. I feel like maybe they want for all of this, especially Blake Lively. I feel like she may want for all of this to come out and be very public. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I definitely think you can ask a prospective juror about their relationship to, their likes or dislikes of one of the potential witnesses in a case.
Let me tell you,
it's important information to know.
Yeah, this will be some event if it does in fact happen. We'll keep an eye on it. Carmen Rowe, Lori Murray, Ali Benevento. Great to have you all here. Thanks so much. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, a pair of jeans with the blood of 2 murder victims was allegedly found in Paul Canero's basement. Will the defense be able to cast doubt on this DNA evidence? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
The tragic murder of Keith Canero and his entire family.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look. Oh, Taste of Freedom. That's Timothy Busfield, spotted after a shopping trip following his release from jail. This is from the Daily Mail, carrying some shopping bags from Cinderella, Trader Joe's, released from custody, ROR. He doesn't have to be anywhere while awaiting trial. And by the way, this is from Airbnb.com. Take a look at where he and the missus were staying. Much different than that jail cell. This is Villa de Raphael, a swanky Italian-style mansion in Albuquerque. They were breaking good, huh? $2,400 for 3 nights. Not too bad. Beautiful, beautiful. Next time you go to Albuquerque, you probably want to stay there. All right, take a look at your screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Leah Grace Skeet, 17 years old, missing from Peoria, Arizona. If you see Leah, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Peoria, Arizona police. Numbers on your screen right now. Let's see if we can get Leah to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.